Subin walked through the long hallway of Galactic Council Station Nexus 7. Her black diplomatic uniform made soft sounds against the metal floor. She carried a simple briefcase and wore no weapons. Yet every alien she passed moved away from her. The tall, blue-skinned Velkari pressed themselves against the walls. Their large eyes watched her with fear. A group of insect-like Thraxians clicked their mandibles nervously and scuttled into side corridors. Even the massive Brutans, who stood 3 meters tall and could crush steel with their bare hands, stepped aside when they saw her coming. Subin had expected this reaction. Earth's intelligence reports had warned her about how the galaxy viewed humans. She kept walking, her face calm and professional. Behind her, 2 other humans followed at a respectful distance. Haywan was her security chief. She looked relaxed, but her eyes constantly scanned the area around them. Her hand rested near her sidearm, though she hoped she would not need it. Haywan had fought in 3 major conflicts before taking this diplomatic assignment. She understood why the aliens were afraid. Jinho was younger, barely 25 years old. This was his first major diplomatic mission. He carried electronic tablets and communication devices. His job was to record everything and help with translations. He tried not to stare at the aliens, but their fear puzzled him. Humans had always been peaceful in their contacts with other species. The hallway opened into a massive chamber. The ceiling stretched up so high that Subin could barely see the top. Hundreds of alien species sat in floating seats arranged in circles around a central platform. When the humans entered, the chattering and noise stopped completely. Vex Prime Corvain floated down from the highest tier of seats. His body was made of living crystal that sparkled with inner light. As the current leader of the Galactic Council, he had to greet the human delegation personally. But Subin could see the reluctance in his movements. "Welcome to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Subin of Earth," Corvain said. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We have prepared a place for you to sit." The seat was positioned far from the other delegates. Subin noticed this but said nothing. She sat down gracefully and placed her briefcase beside her. Haywan and Jinho took positions behind her chair. "Thank you for accepting us into the council," Subin replied. "Earth looks forward to peaceful cooperation with all galactic civilizations." A ripple of nervous sounds went through the chamber. The word peaceful coming from a human seemed to make many delegates uncomfortable. Subin wondered what stories they had heard about her species. Corvain floated back to his position. "Before we begin formal discussions, the Council requires certain assurances. Your species has gained a certain reputation across the galaxy. We need to know that Earth can be trusted with membership in our organization." "What kind of reputation?" Subin asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. A Velkari delegate stood up. His voice shook as he spoke. 3 years ago, a human cargo ship was attacked by Razek pirates near the Kepler system. The pirates sent 12 warships against 1 merchant vessel. They expected an easy victory. The delegate paused, looking around the chamber. Instead, the human ship destroyed the entire pirate fleet. 12 warships gone. The human cargo ship had only basic defensive systems, but they found ways to use them that no one thought possible. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Subin remembered reading about that incident. Captain Park had been transporting medical supplies to a colony world. When the pirates attacked, he had used his cargo containers as improvised weapons and turned his ship's mining lasers into precision military tools. Another delegate, this one a tall, gray-skinned Altarian, spoke up. The Proxima defense was even more shocking. Human colonists on Proxima Centauri B held off a full Thraxian invasion force for 6 months. They had no military training and no proper weapons. A Thraxian in the chamber clicked angrily. They turned farming equipment into weapons of war. They used fertilizer to make explosives. They organized civilian populations into fighting units that moved like professional soldiers. And the Sol Gambit added a floating, jellyfish-like Aquarian. "When our long-range sensors detected your species preparing for interstellar war, we saw something impossible. In less than 48 hours, humans had converted their entire asteroid belt into a defensive weapons platform." Subin kept her expression neutral, but inside she felt proud. Humanity had never wanted war, but they had shown the galaxy that Earth would defend itself if necessary. The Sol Gambit had been a massive bluff, but it had worked. No species had dared to attack Earth directly. "Every species in this chamber has heard stories about human combat effectiveness," Corvain continued. Your people seem to treat impossible situations as minor problems to be solved. This makes you unpredictable. We prefer to think of ourselves as adaptable, Subin replied calmly. Adaptable, repeated a Bruton's delegate, his deep voice rumbling through the chamber. Our intelligence reports say that humans consider any problem solvable if they think about it hard enough. This is not normal thinking. Jinho leaned forward slightly. He was beginning to understand why Earth had chosen such experienced people for this mission. These aliens were not just cautious about humans. They were genuinely afraid of what humanity might be capable of. Corvain's crystal body pulsed with different colors as he processed the situation. The Council has decided to offer your species a test. If you can complete it successfully, we will welcome Earth as a full member. If you fail, we will need to reconsider your application. What kind of test? Subin asked. The galaxy faces a threat that our combined military forces have been unable to defeat. They call themselves the Void Swarm. They come from beyond our galaxy and consume entire star systems. They have already destroyed 17 worlds and show no signs of stopping. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate knew about the Void Swarm. They were the galaxy's greatest nightmare, a species of parasites that seemed impossible to fight or reason with. Our most powerful fleets have engaged them multiple times, Corvain explained. We lose ships, they lose nothing. Our weapons barely scratch their hulls. Our tactics have no effect on their movements. They learn from every encounter and become stronger. Subin understood the situation immediately. The Galactic Council was desperate. They had heard stories about human problem-solving abilities and hoped that Earth might find a solution where they had failed. If we agree to help, she said carefully, what resources would be available to us? Full access to our military databases, star charts, and intelligence reports. You would have complete freedom to engage the Void Swarm as you see fit. In return, if you succeed, Earth gains full membership in the Council with all associated benefits. Subin looked back at Haiwan and Jinho. Both of them nodded slightly. This was exactly the kind of opportunity Earth had hoped for. Full Council membership would give humanity access to interstellar trade routes, advanced technologies, and peaceful diplomatic relations with hundreds of species. We accept your test, Subin announced. The relief in the chamber was almost visible. Many delegates seemed to relax for the first time since the humans had arrived. They were passing their greatest problem to the species they feared most. But as Subin activated her communication device to contact Earth, she smiled slightly. The Galactic Council had no idea what they had just unleashed. They thought they were testing humanity's capabilities. They were about to learn that humans had been holding back all along. 3 days after Subin accepted the Galactic Council's test, Earth's response arrived at the Rigel system. The Void Swarm had been attacking the outer planets for 2 weeks. Local defense forces were retreating rapidly, and civilian evacuation ships filled the space lanes. Admiral Tae-jun stood on the bridge of the destroyer Sol's Hammer, watching the tactical display. 12 human ships had answered the call for help. To most galactic civilizations, this would seem like a token force. The Void Swarm had hundreds of vessels in the Rigel system alone. Sir, we're receiving communications from the Velkari Defense Fleet, reported Communications Officer Jae-un. She was young for her rank, but her ability to process multiple data streams simultaneously had earned her a place on this mission. Put them through, Tae-jun ordered. The image of a Velkari commander appeared on screen. His blue skin had turned pale with stress. Human vessels, I am Commander Velkoth of the Rigel Defense Force. You must retreat immediately. The Void Swarm has overwhelming numbers and their weapons are unlike anything we have ever encountered. Thank you for the warning, Commander, Tae-jun replied calmly. We'll take your concerns under advisement. Please continue with your evacuation procedures. Velkoth's large eyes widened. You don't understand. They have destroyed every fleet sent against them. Our strongest warships barely damage their hulls. Please withdraw while you still can. Tae-jun smiled politely. We appreciate your concern, Commander. Sol's Hammer out. The communication ended, leaving the Velkari commander staring at a blank screen. Around the human fleet, dozens of alien observation ships maintained safe distances. Word had spread quickly that Earth had sent forces to engage the Void Swarm. Everyone wanted to see how the feared humans would handle this impossible. Enemy Captain Minsu commanded the light cruiser Busan's Pride. She studied the tactical information her sensors were gathering about the void swarm. Their ships were organic, grown rather than built. They moved in patterns that seemed random but showed signs of deeper coordination. Interesting, she murmured. They're using quantum entanglement for fleet coordination. No wonder conventional jamming doesn't work on them. Her tactical officer looked confused. Ma'am, our sensors don't show any quantum signatures. Look deeper, Minsu suggested. Check the quantum foam fluctuations around their formation. The officer's eyes widened as new data appeared on his screen. How did you know to look there? Because that's what I would do if I needed instantaneous communication across interstellar distances, Minsu replied. Question is, can we disrupt it? Meanwhile, on the engineering deck of the assault ship Daegu's Fist, Lieutenant Hyo Jin was examining captured void swarm technology. The aliens had provided several damaged enemy components recovered from previous battles. Most galactic engineers had declared them impossible to understand. Hyo Jin saw them differently. These aren't technological devices, she told her team. They're biological computers that have been trained to perform technological functions. The entire Void Swarm fleet is essentially one massive organism. Her senior engineer frowned. If that's true, how do we fight them? Same way you fight any organism, Hyo Jin replied with a grin. You find its weak spots. Admiral Taejun gathered his captains for a virtual conference. The 12 human ships formed a loose formation several million kilometers from the main battle zone. To outside observers, they looked like they were preparing to flee. Status reports, Taejun requested. Busan's Pride has identified the swarm's communication method, Captain Minsu reported. We can disrupt it, but only temporarily. Daegu's Fist has analyzed their technology, reported Captain Sung Ho. Lieutenant Hyo Jin believes she can create weapons specifically designed to exploit their biological nature. Inchin's Might has been tracking their movement patterns, added Captain Bo-Ram. They're not as random as they appear. There's a mathematical progression to their tactics. Commander Yi Jun of the frigate Gwangju's Thunder spoke up. My crew has been monitoring their energy signatures. They're drawing power from some kind of extra-dimensional source. If we can locate the connection points... Excellent work, everyone, Taejun said. Begin implementation of Standard Response Protocol 7. The alien observers watching from a safe distance had no idea what Standard Response Protocol 7 meant. They were about to find out. The human fleet suddenly split into 3 groups. 4 ships moved toward the Void Swarm's left flank, 4 toward the right, and 4 remained in the center. To most military tacticians, this looked like suicide. The humans were dividing their already small force against a much larger enemy. But as the human ships moved, something strange happened. Their movements became perfectly synchronized, as if all 12 vessels were controlled by a single mind. They flew in formations that seemed to bend the laws of physics, making turns that should have been impossible at their speed. The Void Swarm responded to the approaching threat. Hundreds of their organic ships surged forward, weapons charging with dark energy that seemed to absorb light itself. Their first volley should have obliterated the human fleet. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships seemed to flicker out of existence just as the Void Swarm weapons fired. The dark energy beams passed through empty space where the human vessels had been. Then the human ships reappeared, but in different positions. How are they doing that? Demanded Velkoth from his evacuation ship. His sensors officer was frantically checking his equipment. Sir, our instruments can't track their movement method. They're not using any known FTL technology, but they're definitely moving faster than light in short bursts. What the aliens couldn't detect was the quantum manipulation technology that Lieutenant Hyo Jin had developed during the approach. By temporarily shifting their ships into quantum superposition, the humans could exist in multiple locations simultaneously until they chose to observe themselves back into normal space. The first exchange of fire lasted only minutes, but its effects were devastating for the Void Swarm. Instead of destroying human ships, they found their own vessels being systematically dismantled. The human weapons didn't just damage the organic hulls. They seemed to rewrite the molecular structure of whatever they hit. Captain Minsu had solved the quantum communication problem in a typically human way. Instead of trying to jam the swarm's signals, she had learned to speak their language. Busan's Pride was now feeding false information directly into the swarm's collective consciousness. Enemy fleet, you are surrounded, she transmitted in quantum pulses. Your escape routes have been compromised. Recommend immediate surrender. The Void Swarm had never received a surrender demand before. Their biological computers tried to process this new information, while simultaneously dealing with tactical data that no longer made sense. Half their fleet began retreating while the other half advanced, causing massive confusion in their ranks. Commander Yi-jun had located the extra-dimensional power connections that fed the swarm's energy needs. Instead of trying to cut them off, he had done something much more creative. Guangzhou's thunder was now redirecting that energy back into the swarm's own weapon systems. Void swarm ships began exploding as their own power sources overloaded. The aliens watching from the observation ships could hardly believe what they were seeing. The feared Void Swarm, which had destroyed 17 worlds, was being defeated by 12 human vessels, but the most impressive display came from Captain Sung Ho aboard Daegu's Fist. Using Lieutenant Hyo Jin's biological computer virus, he had begun converting captured Void Swarm ships into human allies. The converted vessels turned their weapons on their former fleet mates, adding to the chaos. Within 6 hours, the Battle of Rigel was over. The Void Swarm fleet had been completely destroyed or converted. Not a single human ship had been lost, and casualties were limited to minor injuries from excessive acceleration during combat maneuvers. Admiral Tae-jun opened a communication channel to all the observation ships. "This is Admiral Tae-jun of the Earth Defense Force. The Rigel system has been secured. We are transmitting technical data on Void Swarm countermeasures to all interested parties." Commander Velkoth stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 12 ships, he whispered. 12 human ships just defeated a force that destroyed our entire outer defense network. His communications officer was monitoring human fleet transmissions. "Sir, they're reporting back to Earth Command. They're calling this mission a minor engagement and requesting permission to proceed to the next Void Swarm target." Velkoth felt his blood run cold. If this had been a minor engagement for the humans, what would a major battle look like? The answer came 3 days later when Admiral Tae-jun transmitted his mission report to the Galactic Council. "Void Swarm resistance exceeded initial parameters," he reported calmly. "Recommend deploying Level 2 assets for follow-up operations." Across the galaxy, every military commander who heard that transmission had the same thought. If 12 human ships represented Level 1 assets, what exactly were Level 2 assets? They were about to find out, and the knowledge would change everything they thought they knew about warfare. The stealth vessel Invisible Thunder arrived at the edge of the Andromeda Void, where intelligence reports suggested the main Void Swarm staging area was located. Unlike the massive fleet actions at Rigel, this mission required a different approach. Earth had deployed Eclipse Division, humanity's elite reconnaissance and infiltration unit. Colonel Su-jin stood in the ship's command center, studying holographic displays of their target. The Void Nexus was unlike anything in normal space. It existed partially in their dimension, and partially somewhere else entirely. Even looking at it through sensors made her crew uncomfortable. "Ma'am, our quantum sensors are picking up massive energy readings from the Nexus," reported Specialist Do Hyun. He was young for this kind of mission, but his ability to phase shift through solid matter had earned him a place on the team. "The structure appears to be artificially maintained." Su-jin nodded. Eclipse Division had been created to handle situations that normal military forces couldn't even detect, let alone engage. The 50 operatives aboard Invisible Thunder represented years of experimental training and biological enhancement. They could do things that most humans would consider impossible. "Sensor readings?" Su-jin asked quietly. Lieutenant Yunji looked up from her station. Her enhanced neural pathways allowed her to process information at superhuman speeds. But the data from the Void Nexus was giving her a headache. The Nexus exists in at least 7 dimensions simultaneously. Its inhabitants use quantum consciousness to coordinate activities across multiple realities. "Inhabitants?" Do-hyun asked. "The Void Swarm isn't just ships and weapons," Yunji explained. "They're a collective intelligence that treats individual vessels as temporary bodies. When we destroy their ships, we're not killing them. We're just forcing them to grow new ones." Sergeant Kyung-ho was examining the demolitions requirements for their mission. His job was to create explosives from whatever materials they found at the target site. He had once brought down a fortified bunker using nothing but kitchen chemicals and electronic components from a broken communicator. "If they can just regrow their fleet," he said thoughtfully, "then we need to target their ability to regrow. Find the source of their biological mass production." Sujin activated the ship's internal communication system. All teams prepare for dimensional insertion. We're going inside the Nexus to gather intelligence and, if possible, neutralize the Void Swarm's production capabilities. The alien observers, maintaining long-range surveillance of the area, had no idea that humans were approaching the Void Nexus. Invisible. Thunder existed in a quantum state that made it invisible to most sensors. Even when it was detected, observers couldn't be certain whether they were seeing a real ship or just quantum fluctuations in space. Commander Velkoth, who had witnessed the Battle of Rigel, was aboard one of the observation ships. The Galactic Council had sent him to monitor human activities and report on their methods. So far, his reports had been difficult for the Council to believe. "Sir," his sensor operator said nervously, "we're detecting some kind of spatial distortion near the Void Nexus. But our computers can't identify its source." Velkoth studied the readings. "Could it be natural phenomenon?" "Unknown, sir. The distortion appears to be moving with purpose, but it doesn't match any known ship signatures." Inside the Nexus, Eclipse Division was making discoveries that would reshape galactic understanding of the universe. The Void Swarm wasn't just a parasite species attacking random targets. They were an immune system, created by an ancient civilization to prevent certain types of life from spreading across the universe. Du-hyun phased through the Nexus's outer barriers and found himself inside a structure that hurt to look at directly. The walls seemed to exist in multiple dimensions, and the corridors led in directions that didn't correspond to normal three-dimensional space. "Command, I'm inside the primary structure," he reported through quantum encrypted communications. "The architecture is designed for consciousness that doesn't use physical bodies. I can see control systems, but they're made of organized thought patterns rather than solid matter." Sujin processed this information quickly. "Can you interface with their systems?" "Already trying, ma'am. Give me a few minutes." Meanwhile, Yoonji was discovering the true purpose of the Void Swarm. By tapping into their quantum communication networks, she could hear their collective thoughts. What she learned was terrifying. "Colonel, the Void Swarm classifies different species based on their potential to break universal physical laws," she reported. "Most galactic civilizations are rated as stable or contained, but what about humans?" Sujin asked. "We're classified as impossible life. The Swarm considers us a threat to the stability of reality itself. They believe that if humans continue to evolve, we'll eventually break the universe." Kyung-ho had found the biological production centers where new Void Swarm vessels were grown. Instead of destroying them immediately, he was studying their methods. What he discovered changed his understanding of biology and technology. "These aren't factories," he reported. "They're evolution chambers. The Swarm doesn't build ships. They evolve them. Each new vessel is designed to counter whatever defeated the previous generation. That explains why they keep getting stronger," Sujin realized. "Every time we fight them, we're teaching them how to fight us better." Du-hyun had successfully interfaced with the Nexus control systems, but what he found there shook him. "Colonel, I've accessed their historical records. The Void Swarm has been active for millions of years. They've eliminated dozens of species that were classified as impossible life." "What made those species impossible?" Sujin asked. "They refused to accept physical limitations. They found ways to manipulate matter and energy that shouldn't have been possible." Sound familiar? The implications hit the team immediately. Humans weren't the first species to develop reality-bending capabilities, but they might be the first to survive the Void Swarm's attention. Yoonji was deep in the Swarm's communication network when she made an even more disturbing discovery. "Colonel, the Swarm isn't just reacting to us. They're afraid of us." "Afraid? Why?" "Because we're not just bending physical laws," Yoonji explained. "We're rewriting them. Every time humans encounter an impossible situation, we find a way to make it possible. The Swarm has never seen anything like that before." Kyung-ho had been working on a plan to neutralize the biological production centers, but his approach was typically human in its creativity. Instead of destroying the evolution chambers, he was reprogramming them. "I can't shut down their production capabilities," he reported, "but I can change what they produce. Instead of warships designed to fight humans, I can make them grow ships designed to cooperate with humans." "Do it," Sujin ordered. As Kyung-ho implemented his sabotage program, something unexpected happened. The Void Swarm's collective consciousness began to experience something it had never felt before: curiosity. For millions of years they had operated on pure instinct, eliminating threats to universal stability. But humans were forcing them to think in new ways. Du Hyun, still connected to their control systems, felt the change as it happened. "Colonel, something's wrong. The swarm is learning. Not just about our tactics, but about our way of thinking. Is that bad?" Soo-jin asked. "I don't know. They're starting to question their own purpose. They're wondering if maybe impossible life isn't necessarily a bad thing." The mission had taken an unexpected turn. Eclipse Division had come to gather intelligence and destroy the Void Swarm's capabilities. Instead, they were accidentally teaching an ancient immune system to think for itself. Yoonji suddenly gasped and pulled herself out of the communication network. "Colonel, we need to leave now. What's happening?" The swarm just realized something. They've been eliminating impossible life for millions of years, but they never asked what the universe would become if they let it live. They want to find out, and they want to use us as a test case. The team began their extraction, but the Void Nexus was changing around them. The hostile environment was becoming curious. Instead of trying to destroy the human intruders, it was studying them. As invisible thunder departed the Nexus, Soo-jin transmitted her mission report to Earth Command. "Eclipse Division has completed intelligence gathering on the Void Swarm. Recommend immediate deployment of Omega Protocol. The situation has exceeded Level 2 parameters. Commander Velkoth's sensors detected the spatial distortion moving away from the Void Nexus, but his instruments still couldn't identify what it was. More disturbing, the Nexus itself was changing. Its energy signatures were shifting in ways that made no sense." "Sir," his sensor operator reported, "the Void Nexus appears to be thinking. Its quantum patterns are reorganizing themselves in ways that suggest conscious thought." Velkoth transmitted an emergency report to the Galactic Council. "Human forces have made contact with the Void Swarm's Central Intelligence. Unknown changes are occurring in enemy capabilities. Recommend immediate council session to discuss new developments." But across human space, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Earth's High Command was reviewing Eclipse Division's report with growing concern. The Void Swarm wasn't just an enemy. It was an ancient guardian that had been protecting the universe from species like humanity. The ship that arrived at the Void Nexus was unlike anything in galactic records. The final word existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, appearing as a sleek destroyer to three-dimensional observers while extending into realms of reality that most species couldn't perceive. General Park stood alone on the bridge, if it could be called a bridge. The command center existed in a space between dimensions, allowing him to observe the universe from perspectives that would drive most minds insane. He had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. Behind him, in specially designed chambers that existed partially outside normal spacetime, waited the 12. They were humanity's answer to impossible problems. Individuals who had learned to break the rules of physics so thoroughly that they had become rules unto themselves. "General," came a voice that seemed to speak directly into his mind. It was Narration, known to the few who had met her as the Silence. She had the ability to make things simply stop existing, not through destruction, but through convincing reality that they had never been there in the first place. "The Nexus is aware of our presence," she continued. "Its curiosity is intense," Park nodded. Eclipse Division's report had made clear that the Void Swarm had evolved beyond its original programming. It was no longer simply destroying impossible life on instinct. It wanted to understand what such life might become if allowed to flourish. "Woo-jin, what's your assessment?" Park asked. Woo-jin materialized beside him, though he remained partially phased into higher dimensions. Known as the Physics Killer, he could temporarily rewrite natural laws in localized areas. His presence made the air around him shimmer with impossible colors. "The Nexus structure is fascinating," Woo-jin reported. "It's using controlled violations of thermodynamics to maintain itself across multiple realities." Whoever built this understood universe-level engineering. Park had read the historical files. The Void Swarm had been created by a species that had achieved universal consciousness before voluntarily dissolving itself to prevent causing damage to reality. They had left behind a guardian system designed to prevent other species from making the same mistakes. "So young, can you see the potential outcomes?" Park asked. So Young existed in several timelines simultaneously, making her appear to flicker in and out of existence. As the paradox, she could observe multiple possible futures and choose which one to make real. I see many paths from this point, she said, her voice overlapping with echoes from different timelines. In some, we destroy the Void Swarm and doom the universe to chaos. In others, they destroy us and prevent a new age of evolution. But there's a third path. Show me, Park ordered. The bridge of the final word suddenly filled with holographic displays showing possible futures. Park saw universes where humanity's reality-bending abilities had run unchecked, turning entire galaxies into playgrounds for human imagination. He saw timelines where the Void Swarm had succeeded in eliminating all impossible life, leaving a universe of perfect order and perfect stagnation. But in the third path, he saw something extraordinary. Humans and the Void Swarm working together, teaching each other, creating something that neither could achieve alone. Can we reach that future? Park asked. Only if we can convince an ancient immune system that evolution is worth the risk, So Young replied. Park activated the ship's communication systems, but not to contact his crew. Instead, he opened a direct channel to the Void Nexus itself. What came through was not words but pure thought, the collective consciousness of a million-year-old guardian system. Why do you not fear us? The Void Swarm asked. We have eliminated species far more advanced than yours. Because fear is just another limitation to overcome, Park replied aloud, knowing that the 12 would translate his words into the quantum thought patterns the swarm could understand. You break laws that maintain universal stability. You make impossible things possible. This leads to chaos, does it? Park asked. Dongsu, show them what we've learned. Dongsu, the listener, had the ability to hear thoughts across galactic distances. But more importantly, he could share memories and experiences directly from one consciousness to another. He reached out to the Void Swarm and showed them Earth's history. The swarm experienced human civilization through Dongsu's memories. They saw how humans had repeatedly encountered impossible situations and found solutions. But they also saw that humans had learned to be careful with their reality-bending abilities. They saw the ethics committees that guided human research, the safety protocols that prevented dangerous experiments, the philosophers who asked whether something should be done just because it could be done. Interesting, the swarm admitted. You have developed restraint. This is unusual for impossible life. We learned from observing the universe, Park explained. We saw what happened to species that pushed too hard, too fast. We chose to evolve gradually. Jiwan stepped forward. As the architect, she could rebuild matter at the quantum level in real time. Her presence caused the air around her to sparkle with newly created particles that hadn't existed moments before. May I show you something? She asked the swarm. Without waiting for permission, Jiwan began to work. She reached out with her abilities and touched a dead section of the Void Nexus, an area that had been damaged by eons of use. Under her influence, the damaged structure began to repair itself, but not by returning to its original state. Instead, Jiwan was improving it. The section she touched became more efficient, more elegant, more beautiful. It retained all of its original functions but gained new capabilities that even the ancient builders hadn't imagined. Most importantly, it remained stable despite its enhanced abilities. How? The swarm asked. And for the first time in millions of years, there was wonder in their mental voice. By understanding that impossible doesn't mean dangerous, Jiwan explained. It just means we haven't learned the right way to do it yet. Seokjin, the mirror, demonstrated his abilities by reflecting the swarm's own quantum communications back to them, but enhanced and clarified. The ancient consciousness suddenly found itself able to think more clearly than it had in millennia. Yu-Jin, the Time Walker, showed them glimpses of past civilizations that the swarm had eliminated, revealing the potential that had been lost. But instead of accusation, there was only sadness and understanding. She showed them that even mistakes could be learned from. Changmin stepped forward and the swarm recoiled in shock. As the void touched, he had been partially consumed by the swarm during a previous encounter, but instead of dying, he had adapted. He now carried part of their essence within himself while retaining his human consciousness. I understand your fear, he said to the swarm. I've felt what it's like to lose control, to see reality bend in ways that could destroy everything. But I've also learned that understanding and cooperation are stronger than fear, and Destruction. The demonstration continued as each member of the 12 showed the Void Swarm a different aspect of controlled impossibility. Heejin, the Star Killer, demonstrated how to focus stellar energy without destroying the star. Sang-woo, the Dream Maker, created temporary pocket universes where imagination became reality without affecting the main universe. Bo Young, the Endwalker, who existed partially outside the universe itself, showed the swarm what lay beyond the boundaries of known reality. There were other universes out there, some filled with impossible life, others perfectly ordered. The diversity was not a problem to be solved, but a wonder to be celebrated. Finally, Taehyung stepped forward. As the first, he was the original human to break physics, the one from whom all others had learned. His presence made reality itself more flexible in his immediate vicinity. "We're not asking you to abandon your purpose," he said to the swarm. "We're asking you to evolve it. Instead of eliminating impossible life, help guide it. Teach us how to be impossible without being dangerous." The Void Nexus fell silent for long minutes as the ancient consciousness processed this new concept. The swarm had been programmed to eliminate threats to universal stability. But these humans were offering to work together to maintain that stability while still pushing the boundaries of what was possible. "You would accept our guidance?" The swarm asked finally. "You would allow us to monitor your development? To intervene if you go too far?" "If you're willing to learn from us in return," Park replied. "You've spent millions of years preventing evolution. We can teach you how to guide it instead. And if we refuse? If we continue to see you as a threat?" Narration spoke up, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Then we'll convince you otherwise. But we'd prefer to do it peacefully." The demonstration of her abilities was subtle but terrifying. For just a moment, a small section of the Void Nexus simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, just absent. Then she allowed it to exist again, unchanged but carrying the memory of nothingness. The message was clear. The 12 had the power to eliminate the Void Swarm if necessary, but they preferred cooperation to conflict. "We require time to consider this proposal," the swarm said finally. "Take all the time you need," Park replied. "But while you're deciding, let us show you what's possible when impossible life works together with universal guardians." The 12 began to work together, combining their abilities in ways that even they had. 1 year after the Void Swarm Alliance, Ambassador Subin returned to the Galactic Council chambers aboard Nexus 7. The difference from her first visit was remarkable. Instead of fleeing in terror, alien delegates gathered to listen when humans spoke. Instead of fear, there was something far more powerful in their eyes. Hope. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Void Swarm, now calling themselves the Evolution Guides, had become humanity's partners in exploring the outer regions of known space. Together they had discovered 17 new species beyond the galactic rim, each one more impossible than the last. Subin walked into the great chamber where hundreds of alien species waited for her report. Vex Prime Corvain floated down to greet her, his crystal body pulsing with colors that indicated excitement rather than fear. "Ambassador Subin," Corvain said, his voice carrying harmonics of wonder, "we have been eager to hear about your species' latest achievements." The word achievements had taken on new meaning in galactic politics. When humans were involved, achievements typically meant the discovery of new ways to make impossible things routine. "Thank you, Council Leader," Subin replied as she took her seat. This time, her chair was positioned at the center of the chamber, surrounded by delegates who wanted to be close to humanity's representative. Haewon and Jinho flanked her as always, but their roles had evolved. Haewon was now Earth's Director of Galactic Security Cooperation, teaching other species how to defend themselves using human tactical innovations. Jinho had become humanity's Chief Ambassador to species with newly discovered impossible abilities. "Before I begin my formal report," Subin said, "I should address the rumors that have been circulating throughout the galaxy." A ripple of nervous excitement went through the chamber. Everyone had heard the stories about what humans were doing in the outer reaches of space, but confirmation from an official source would make them real. First, yes, we have made contact with the architects of probability. They are a species that exists in all possible timelines simultaneously. With the Evolution Guide's help, we've established communication protocols that don't cause paradoxes. The chamber erupted in amazed chatter. The architects of probability had been theoretical entities that most scientists believed couldn't exist without destroying causality. Second, Subin continued, we have confirmed the existence of the dream weavers, beings that exist entirely as conscious thought without physical form. They've been teaching us how to create stable pocket dimensions where imagination becomes reality. A Velkari delegate stood up, his voice shaking with excitement rather than fear. Ambassador, these discoveries. How are you making first contact with beings that exist outside normal physics? Subin smiled. The same way humans have always approached impossible situations. We assume there's a solution and keep looking until we find it. Jinho stepped forward with a holographic projector. If I may, Ambassador, I'd like to show the Council what we've learned from our impossible neighbors. The chamber dimmed as Jinho activated the display. Three-dimensional images filled the air, showing species and civilizations that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about life. The quantum shepherds, Jinho explained, exist in the spaces between atoms. They've been maintaining the stability of matter throughout the universe for billions of years, and no one knew they were there. The image showed beings of pure energy guiding subatomic particles in their eternal dance. Their work kept electrons in stable orbits and prevented matter from spontaneously decaying into energy. The Time Gardeners live at the end of the universe, where entropy has slowed time to almost nothing. They've been planting seeds of information that will help new universes form when this one ends. Gasps echoed through the chamber as delegates saw images of beings tending to structures that existed in the final moments of reality itself, preparing for realities that hadn't been born yet. And the memory keepers, Jinho continued, preserve the experiences of every conscious being that has ever lived. They exist in a parallel dimension made entirely of stored memories and knowledge. Commander Velkoth, who had witnessed humanity's first military engagements, raised his hand. Ambassador, how are your people capable of contacting beings like these when our most advanced theories said they were impossible? Subin exchanged a look with Heywan and Jinho. This was the moment they had been preparing for, when they would have to reveal the truth about humanity's capabilities. Commander Velkoth, Subin said carefully, there's something the Council needs to understand about Earth's response to the Void Swarm crisis. The chamber fell silent. Everyone remembered the legendary battles where 12 human ships had defeated impossible odds, where Eclipse Division had infiltrated an extra-dimensional fortress, where the 12 had convinced an ancient cosmic intelligence to evolve its purpose. Everything you witnessed, Subin announced. Admiral Taejun's Battle Group Terra, Colonel Sujin's Eclipse Division, General Park, and the 12. None of them were military forces. The silence deepened. Delegates leaned forward in their seats, unsure they had heard correctly. Battle Group Terra was our cultural exchange division, Subin explained. Their job was to communicate with species that couldn't be reached through normal diplomatic channels. When words fail, humans prefer to communicate through actions. Heywan stepped forward. Eclipse Division was our deep understanding unit. Their specialty is learning how other forms of consciousness think and feel. They infiltrated the Void Nexus not to destroy it, but to understand it. And the 12? Asked Corvain, his crystal body flickering with uncertainty. Jinho smiled. Philosophical instructors. Their job was to help the Void Swarm understand that evolution and stability could coexist. They were teachers, not weapons. The revelation hit the chamber like a physical force. The incredible displays of power, the reality-bending abilities, the impossible technologies, all of it had been humanity's diplomatic core. A Thraxian delegate clicked frantically. If those were your diplomats, what are your actual military forces like? Subin's expression became very serious. Earth's military has never been deployed outside the Sol system. The technology and abilities you've seen represent our peaceful first contact protocols. The implications were staggering. Every alien in the chamber was recalculating everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. If humanity's diplomats could defeat cosmic-level threats, what could their actual soldiers do? But Subin wasn't finished. There's more the Council needs to know. The evolution guides have been sharing their historical records with us. We've learned something important about impossible life species. She activated a new display showing a map of the galaxy with thousands of highlighted star systems. There are 2,147 species in this galaxy alone that possess reality manipulation abilities. Most of them have been hiding their capabilities because they were afraid of attracting the Void Swarm's attention. They're no longer hiding, Haywan added. The crystalline harmonists of the Vega system have revealed that they can alter the fundamental frequencies of matter itself. The phase dancers near Alpha Centauri can step between dimensions at will. The probability calculators in the Andromeda spiral arm can predict and change future events. Jinho brought up another display. Humanity's new mission is to help these species develop their abilities safely. We're establishing the Academy for Impossible Sciences, where beings with reality-bending powers can learn to use them responsibly. The chamber erupted into excited discussion. For millions of years, the galaxy had lived in fear of pushing too far, of developing abilities that might attract cosmic punishment. Now they were being told that such evolution was not only safe but encouraged. Corvain floated closer to Subin. Ambassador, this academy, would it accept non-human students? That's the point, Subin replied. Humanity's greatest discovery isn't any single ability or technology. It's the understanding that impossible things become possible when different forms of consciousness work together. A young Velkari delegate, barely out of adolescence, raised her hand nervously. Ambassador, I've always been able to see probability streams. My people told me it was just imagination, but after hearing about your species, it's not imagination, Subin assured her. And you're not alone. There are thousands of beings in this galaxy with similar gifts. The Academy can help you understand and develop them. Over the following hours, delegates from dozens of species came forward with stories of hidden abilities, suppressed talents, and impossible dreams. The galaxy, it turned out, was full of potential that had been deliberately suppressed by fear. As the session continued, reports came in from across known space. The evolution guides were working with human teams to make contact with increasingly exotic forms of life. They had found beings made of dark matter in the void between galaxies, conscious black holes that used gravity to think, and energy patterns that existed in the quantum foam itself. The universe, Jinho announced, is far stranger and more wonderful than anyone imagined, and it's full of friends we just haven't met yet. But perhaps the most significant announcement came at the end of the session. Subin stood and activated a communication link to Earth. This is Ambassador Subin reporting to Earth.